Star Genio with Unanet. We're going to go ahead and get started with our Customer Account Management webinar today. So welcome to our Foundation series as we continue. Our topic today is improving your cash flow with fast and accurate invoicing. We're really going to be talking about the billing and invoicing feature within Unanet. Again, I'm Sherry. I am a senior constructional designer here at Unanet, and I'm very excited that you have joined us today for our webinar. This one particular is based on feedback from our customers wanting to learn more about billing inside of Unanet and the benefits, how understanding the process and how easy it is to create invoices in Unanet. So we're going to cover that invoicing process and how to configure formatting your invoice and set up the project setup as well. I do have a few housekeeping notes that I wanted to show you. And if you have questions, well, first of all, if you have any kind of lag or internet delay or the response time kind of goes down for you, just drop off of the webinar and log back in again. That should take care of that for you. Joining me today, I have Terry Dempsey, who is a customer account manager with Unanet. She's going to be monitoring the questions box. Terry, are you there? Well, I know that Terry's there because we talked a little bit earlier. So she's going to be monitoring the questions box. So on the kind of the lower halfway point in the GoToWebinar session, you'll see you can type in questions along the way. I will be taking questions towards the end of the webinar after I kind of do a little terminology PowerPoint presentation. So we're all on the same page, and I'm going to demo the process in Unanet, and then we can take any questions that you might have. So just feel free to type in your questions to that questions box. In addition, if you look even lower, you'll see there's a handout section in the GoToWebinar as well. I have uploaded the PowerPoint that I'm going to be talking through today, and it is about 20 slides worth of content, so it might be a good reference point for you to have as well. So I've got some good screenshots and terminology, descriptions, and billing types, etc. So you might want to upload that before you head out of the webinar today. All right, so I think that's everything else. It's, again, if you have questions and we, for some reason, don't get to your questions or having issues, then I think you can always call or email your cam at unanet.com. So we're happy to have you on board. So let's get started. All right, so the agenda for today, I wanted to start by clarifying that the billing and invoicing feature is part of the Unanet project tracking license and with the portfolio license, and then with each of the financials license as well, of course. So Unanet project tracking, portfolio, and the financials, it includes not only the time capture, but also the expense reporting and approval captures as well. And with the tracking license, the minimum type of license for billing, you have the costing reports, financial accounting reports, earned value, and then, of course, billing, invoicing, and revenue recognition. So in order to do billing and invoicing in Unanet, you must at least have the project tracking, project portfolio, or the respective project tracking and portfolio financials licensing. And if you have any questions about your licensing, be sure to just, contact your cam at unanet.com, and they can talk to you about your licensing, your current licensing requirement, and if you need to have some kind of an upgrade with your licensing to be able to have this capability. So I wanted to just find out from everyone today if you're currently invoicing in Unanet right now or not. So that'll let me know about the gauge of level of detail if we're looking at wanting to do invoicing in Unanet, or you already are and just wanted to pick up some other tips and stuff. So just kind of let me know right now. If you're currently using billing and invoicing in Unanet, one of the greatest benefits to billing is that you don't need to utilize outside spreadsheets with the potential for data entry error, right? So the goal is to shorten the billing process in order to accelerate your receiving of your customer payments, right? So it looks to me that we're about halfway. Half of our attendees today are using billing, and looks about 58% are not. So this will be a good exposure to that process. So thank you for letting me know. So I have about half and half. All right. So hopefully you can see my PowerPoint screen again. So today we're going to be reviewing that billing process and the roles that we need to execute and view the invoicing, what transactions are included on the invoices, what global billing setup that we need to do, and set up at the project level, what aspects of invoice setup are done at the project level. And I'll log into my demo system and show you what I call the 3-click process of invoicing, the setup of and formatting of your invoices, and the setup at the project level. And finally, I'll show you a few key reports to show what's been billed on your projects and what has yet to be billed based on our posting process and adding an invoice on your project. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I wanted to just briefly talk about billing terms so that we're all on the same page and understand what we're talking about. We have these 3 billing types in the system. The first is fixed price. There's a set amount that you've agreed upon with your customer, and there's 3 different ways to set up the billing of those fixed price items, usually with a date. When billed is a date associated for that amount. A percent complete based on either hours that are worked or a dollar amount, total cost. So a percent complete that can be set up based on the work that's happening and the hours are being charged in the timesheets. And then we can set up a schedule. So if you have a schedule that you know that you're got to bill out a subscription amount every quarter, then we can set up that schedule to be at the beginning of the quarter, the end of the quarter, end of the month, beginning of the month for that set amount, and it just repeats for that maximum amount. So we can set up that fixed price in a number of different ways. For time and materials, it is billable hours and expenses. It's billable hours times the bill rate times the hours. And if you have expenses, we have the ability to have a markup on those expenses. So we can include that either at the overall Unanet instance or probably more appropriately at the project level and set up that markup for expenses. We have the ability to have pre-bill labor option to have a set amount of pre-bill and work off that billable labor. And then we can also defer labor and expenses. So if I've got some transactions that, you know, maybe I've got some discrepancies with the customer if I should have been charging to that task or a project or had that expense, I can negotiate that and then I can defer those labor and expenses to the next posting period or invoicing period. And then finally we have our cost plus billing type, which is cost plus fixed fee, and it is the cost of labor and expenses with the indirect cost applied to it. And those indirect costs are typically, you know, G&A, fringe, overhead, those kind of indirect costs for the cost of doing business for that project, that billable project. And then if you have an applicable fee that your customer has agreed upon in that contract, that fee would also be built on top of that. And those are the amounts that you would bill out and see on the invoice for those 3 billing types. So hopefully that kind of clears up just some general definitions so we're all on the same page. So as you know, there are many different person roles available in your Unanet instance. And that's the beauty of Unanet. You know, important that the roles are related to the Unanet billing is the billing manager role. Here I've got that role, it's billing manager. And now in your organization, that could be a project manager, that could be a biller, it could be a controller, it could be a contracts administrator, whatever that role is in your organization. In Unanet, they need to have the billing manager role, and that allows them to select projects and post or mark data that's ready to be added onto an invoice. They can create invoices, they can finalize, review invoices, and then complete them and send them off to be ready to send off to your third-party accounting system if you have that scenario. Now, next is the billing viewer role. And that could be, again, in your organization, your project manager, accounting manager, controller, etc. They could have the billing viewer, and it's a limited access. They're not creating, posting, adding those invoices or completing those invoices. They're actually able to see, review the content of the invoices, and execute reports to view the information regarding the billing amounts and billing invoices and the status of those invoices, but they're not actually editing the invoices and adding invoices or completing those invoices. So two key roles here that you'll need to decide in your organization, who has what roles and who has what capability, Unanet capability. So now that we've said that, so here's the billing process. It's pretty simple here. We're doing the work. What I call the timesheet expense worker bees. They're entering their time and expenses and timesheets, and then once the period is over, then those timesheets and expenses are approved. Now, once they're approved, at that point in time, they need to go to either the locked or extracted status in Unanet to be ready to be posted or marked for billing to add on to an invoice. So it's important for, after the approval process, do you mark that information, and you may extract the time and expenses to a third-party system for payroll or your accounting system. But when you do that, you're either marking them as locked or extracted to your third-party system. But they do have to be in either one of those. Now, there is a property setting that when you complete or approve a timesheet, it can set the timesheet automatically to that locked state. So it might be something to think about if you're endeavoring in going and using the billing and invoicing moving forward. So the next step here is posting, and that's the action to take those transactions that have not been billed out previously that are marked and move this out of the way, and that are marked and that need to go onto an invoice. So you would mark those by posting those transactions in Unanet. So that's the first step, is the posting. Then you would add an invoice for all of those transactions for all of your customers for that period, and you create the invoice. You would look through the invoice, reviewing the contents that are correct. Maybe you need to defer some items to the next pay period or next posting period, or maybe you need to write off some things. We have the ability to do write-offs. You also might add additional items. Maybe you've got a fixed price item you want to add to the invoice, or maybe there's a discount that you want to be able to apply to that particular invoice. We have the ability to do that. But once it's set in place, then that invoice would be completed. It's approved, it's completed, and then possibly exported out if you have a third-party accounting system. And in Unanet, it's just simply being in the invoices available in the financials package, and then you're able to receive payment once the customer or vendor has made that payment. So that's the process here. So hopefully that process makes some sense here for you. All right, so let me continue on. So that posting process, remember I talked about the fact that the posting process marks all those time and expense transactions that are available. They're either in the locked or extracted status. But based on the billing type, the system will grab pre-bill labor for time and materials, extracted billable labor, the extracted billable expenses, again, either in the locked or extracted status. And if there's any markup for those expense types, it will calculate that as well and identify all those items for your time and materials billing type in those contracts. Now for fixed price, we talked about it earlier. It's those scheduled items. Maybe I've got a monthly billing schedule out for an exact amount, or I've got milestones where I'm realizing the billing to be set for those dates, or I've got a percent complete based on either hours that are worked or maybe dollars, total cost, or total cost for those for the amount worked for that fixed price. So I am able to bill out those amounts based on this information being set up at the project level for my fixed price contracts. And then finally, my cost plus, again, it's those extracted timesheets and expense reports, applying the indirect rates, and then applying any applicable fees, and that's the amount that's calculated to be invoiced out to the customer for our cost plus billing type and contracts. So hopefully that makes sense for the different types of billing types. So it's important to set the billing type based on your contract that you've negotiated at the project level, so that the system knows when you post the information and you add it to the invoice, it knows how to calculate based on the billing type. So when I add an invoice, the invoice will have any additional items that I can add to it. I can defer items to the next invoicing cycle. I can completely write off a particular item for some reason, if I don't ever want to bill that item off, maybe it's an unbillable or unbillable amount, I can customize the invoice, adding any descriptions or anything specifically to this particular invoice this month. And I save it, and I can have my billing, project managers or my billing managers review that, billing viewers review that, and then it can be sent out to be completed. So here's an example of our latest feature is a write-off function that's available. We weren't able to do deferring, that's taking specific transactions, labor and time transactions, selecting those transactions, and deferring it to the next billing period. But here we have the ability to write off. You can see I've written off this $1,200 for whatever reason. I'm not going to charge the customer for that. It's a permanent write-off. And I have reporting with the financial accounting reports to see that write-off amount here. So I wanted to kind of include a screenshot of that because that's a newer functionality with our billing feature. Again, it's all about, maybe you have a write-off because you need to have some rounding challenges and you need to write it off for, maybe 20 cents or 5 cents or something so that's an exact amount. We also allow you to be able to do that here. So that's a great mechanism. And then finally, when it's, reviewed by the accounting or controller, billing manager, et cetera, it's approved and then it's completed. And you can export that amount to a third-party accounting system if you need to. So, for instance, if you have QuickBooks or something else. Now, new to the one of our latest releases is the ability to email invoices out to the customer. And there's some setup that has to be done at the administrator level and then set up at the project level. Important to have the email address set up at the organization. But this is set up at the project level. Wow, it's amazing that you can create the invoice once it's approved and, click on the approval, it automatically emails out with a message, receipt, etc. So that's, really saving time to be able to help out with that invoicing cycle. So if you are billing and invoicing in Unanet today, with our latest release, I think 10.0, the emailing of those invoices really will help out. So make sure you take a look into that. There's project setup, and there's also administrator setup. And also, there's been some updates to the invoicing formatting, some enhancements there. I've got highlighted here showing the inception to date hours. That's always very useful. A lot of our customers have actually asked for a lot of these requests here, showing the markup percentage for those expenses, for example, for the time and materials expenses, showing the total project funded value and the remaining value at the project level and also at the task level. So those are really valuable as well to be able to show the remaining amount that's funded for the project and at the task level if needed. So it really is going to be meeting your customer requirements to have these additional enhancements for you. Also, with the latest release, we have the ability to have all different types of billing types, those projects, on one invoice. We were limited before the 10.0 release to have just time, material, and fixed price on one invoice going to a customer, and cost plus was separate. But we've enhanced that so you can have all different billing types on one invoice so that the customer gets the one sheet, the one listing of that invoice format. And you can customize all the different items here. You can see I've got labor, time and materials, labor expense, fixed price, cost plus, funded value adjustments, additional items, etc. So that's a great thing to be able to have all three billing types on one invoice. Again, to meet the customer requirement, have one invoice for no matter all the different billing types of projects in your system. There is some setup at the project level, identifying the billing type like we've talked about, time, materials, fixed price, or cost plus, identifying the counts, access to the invoice information, and if you have fixed price, you'd want to put your fixed price information in there for billing, percent complete, schedule, milestone, billing date, etc. So that's where all that would come into play at the project. Also is a new option to be able to include one project on an invoice or multiple projects on the invoice. So that's a later enhancement in one of our later releases to be able to include multiple projects that might make up a contract to go to that one customer. So the terminology in Unanet is to have that lead project designated for all the formatting and information associated, the organization addresses and contacts, etc., for the lead, and then these sub-projects or contributor projects would all heed to that command center of the lead project for all the details of the formatting, etc. So it's all grouped together with a little triangle, and I'll show you all this in the demo system here shortly. So again, multiple projects option to have on the invoice, so that's a big thing as well. And then another really valuable enhancement is the funding cap enhancements for revenue and also for billing. So this is a new enhancement, and this is directly from our customer, from you, to be able to limit the billing of our invoices to the funded value, and then the additional would be able to be reported on in our financial accounting reports as the adjustments or adjustments to that revenue or the write-offs, etc. So that's also for billing and for revenue as well. So that's a very valuable thing to have as well. All right, so one last thing, reporting is available to that administrator, the billing manager, and those billing viewer, those three roles. Of course, the administrator has access to everything, right? So we have our detail reports and then our summary reports. The key report that I'm going to show today is that billing and revenue summary report. That's just really valuable to have up, and you can see where all the transactions are, drill down to the detail reports here. This billing and revenue summary report, when you drill down, we'll get to the billing and revenue details, invoice details, journal details, etc. So, so I think without further ado, we will hop into my demo system, if that's okay with everybody here. So let me switch over into my screen here. So I'm logged in as Carrie Contracts. She's my billing manager for the system here. And let me just show you the roles that she has that I've defined for her. So I'm going under here under my preferences, under the upper right-hand box here, or tabs here. I can click in as the user that I've logged into, and you can see here I can define to see who I'm logged in as Carrie Contracts here. She's the contracts controller, if you will. And I can check the roles that have been established. Now, she's not an administrator, but she does have that billing manager role, and she has a project manager role as well. So she's the billing manager creating, she's going to be able to, because of the billing manager, she's going to be able to post, add invoices, and also complete those invoices. Okay? So let's go back to her home screen, and based on her roles, this is the items that she has access to on the tabs based on the roles that she's been identified. So the first thing that I wanted to show you under my Financials tab, which is where the billing and invoicing occurs, the invoicing and posting, I can add invoicing, posting, unpost, and even list those invoices. So what I wanted to do is show you the projects that I'm working on in my system. I've got an examples of 3 different types of billing types to show you today: cost plus, time and materials, and fixed price. So I'm going to be billing out for the month of July. So those are my 3 different projects here. So remembering that easy process that we have, right? We've accrued time and expenses. Those time and expenses have been approved, we're going to assume, for July. And the first step in the billing process is to do a post, to take all the transactions that have been extracted since the last month and post those items. So it's my government contracts here, and I'm just going to create an invoice for all of the transactions that had to do with the previous month of July. So I'm going to select the previous month and go ahead and put that end date as the July 31st date for the posting date. So it's all in the one time frame. So let's take a look at the listing here of those 3 projects, my cost plus time material and fixed price, you can see here, and what I'm about to post or mark to be added to an invoice. Now, the great thing about this is I can see I've got funded value here, so I'm working off my 1428, my posted value. I can drill down here to understand exactly what's included in those transactions. So for my cost plus, if I drill down here and see what that 1428 is, you can see I bought apparently some retina scanners, and I've got the overhead, it's cost plus. My total ODCs is the applicable fee, and the total billed amount or unbilled amount that I'm ready to add to an invoice would be the $14.28. I can consequently also, look at my time and materials and look at the transactions that occurred for the last month that are ready to be added to the invoice and see exactly what made up that $44,556. And then finally, for my fixed price project here, I'm going to drill down to see exactly what happened here. It looks like I've got a little training schedule with a fixed price setup, billing out for this date, 7/10, for the $39.75 for some training. So, and that's a fixed price amount here. So you can see I can very easily go to those detailed reports here. It's the invoicing details report to see the actual amounts per that billing type, per that project, right? So the second thing that I want to show you is I'm going to open up a new tab, another financials tab here. Oops. Open up a new tab. And I'm going to have up running is the billing and revenue funding summary. Now, to this point, this is what's been billed out so far. And in my case, I've got this 3-month contract here. This is what was billed out to the customer for the month of June. I didn't have any training going on. I had $24,000 in change in labor, and I had a fixed price item of $14.28. So I can keep this up, and you can see I don't have any of the unbilled. I don't have anything in the draft column. The unbilled is what I'm marking for posting from those transactions. And I think I lost my my post again here, so let me recreate that for you real quick. What I'm about to post for the previous month and the date of 7/31. Okay, so here we go. So now I'm able to list those. So the first thing I'm going to do is post. Oh, I want to go back here into the previous month. Select that. It said August, and I don't want to take all the transactions from August. I really do want to take all the ones from through July. So you can see here I've got the actuals through July, and then I have the journal date to be at the end of July when I'm going to actually take those transactions and add them to an invoice. So I can select here to select all of my projects here. So you can see here when I have multiple contracts in the system, 20 or 30, and there are multiple projects, I can very easily select them all and identify all those transactions and hit the post and do it all at one time. Easy as that. I go back. There's nothing available right now to post. But what I want to show you is if I go to my revenue, billing and revenue funding summary report and just refresh, keep an eye on the unbilled column because now I have all those exact transactions marked to be added to an invoice. Okay, and I can drill down again here to see exactly what makes up with the details report each of those projects, billing types, and the amounts. All right, so let me go back here. The next step in our process is to add them to an invoice. So under the Financials tab here, under Invoicing and Posting, if I add an invoice, I'm going to select my set of government contracts here. Again, expenses, labor, and training here. And I'll do it for the previous month, for July. And I'm going to go ahead and set my dates to be the July ending date as well, just assuming that I'm going to be invoicing out for the end of the month right there for July, last month. And I'm going to go ahead and list that. Now you'll see here that I've only got one line here with the labor, and it's got this little diamond here. So this is the scenario where I've got a group scenario here. I've got a lead project here, and I've got underlying projects that are contributed or attributed to that main project. So I had the three, the labor, expenses, and training, and now they're grouped together because I really do have one labor project that's the lead. All of the formatting for the invoice is all determined by this labor lead project here. So altogether, the total amount that's ready to be invoiced is this $25,908. So you can see here's the billed amount for the expenses project. Here's the labor project and all of those transactions. So you can see here. All right, let me go back and close this. And so let me go ahead and generate an invoice. Let's go back. We can now list it invoice, and I can click into that invoice and see exactly what's on the invoice. So here again, I've set up my formats to be defined by a set of standard formats to be defined by the administrator. I've connected it at the project setup, which I'll show you shortly. But you can see the transactions for my fixed price. I can see the labor that I've got. I can see my cost plus and my project management task and who's the labor charge there and subtotaling. So I've got all of this on my invoice here. So I can review and make some changes here. I can add additional items here. Maybe I'd want to add maybe something from the discount for labor and maybe do a discount maybe. Maybe I want to negate by $100 for some reason or something amount. I can do that. Or if I have an additional one-time fixed price item that I wanted to add here, I can do that as well and add that just to this month's invoice, this particular invoice. So I'm going to go ahead and leave because I didn't make any changes. I have the ability to look at the cost plus expenses. Now here, I can take this expense amount and completely write it off for some reason. If I've got a scenario here where I purchased these retina scanners for some reason, but I really don't want to pass that cost on to the customer, I want to write it off completely. So I can select that and then write that off. So you can see the write-off amount now is at $14.28. The billable amount is now 0. And I have costing of financial reports to be able to show write-off amounts that would detract that or deduct that from my revenue amounts here. So I can again look through the adjustments, my time and expense, labor. I've got labor here. So you can see each transaction is here. So if there was ever any kind of discrepancy about the charge, I could select the particular transaction or set of transactions and defer them to next month until I get some kind of review on that. So I have that ability to defer an amount as well, transaction by transaction. In this case, I've got my labor time transactions for time and materials. So, so going back to the invoice itself, at that point in time when I have everything set in the invoice and I'm ready to complete it, it's reviewed, it's approved and complete, then the billing manager would come and hit that plus, that green checkbox here. And if I had all of my invoices listed here for the month, you know, for all of my contracts and customers, I can group, complete those as well by selecting this checkbox for all of the listings of those. So it's very, you know, simple project process here: post, add invoice, and then complete. Those are the 3 things that the billing manager should do. So what I'd like to do now is log out and just pretty quickly just look at from the setup and the Unanet, look at the administrator and just point out a couple of items here from the Unanet's administrator setup of those contract information. So under admin setup, under the accounting box here, a couple of key things that I wanted to show: the invoice numbering format. You have the ability to completely configure and tailor the prefix, the start number, the width of it, making them the default one here. You've got my global invoice number default. So if you're invoicing out from another system and you want to start invoicing, say, on September 1st, moving forward, you can determine what that next number is going to be, the prefix that's identified. We have an infinite number of those, so maybe you have commercial, maybe you have government contracts, and you can select which one, and check and just, you know, define which one is that numbering format at the project level. So I wanted to show you that. You know, we have different payment terms that is set, and this can be set now with the organization or that project organization in Unanet terms at the customer to determine what the default payment term would be. So that can be set up as well. I also wanted to show, let's see, oh, the invoice formats. Of course, the invoice formats. You can have an infinite number of formats here and have them active. So maybe you've got some government contracts, or you know, maybe you've got some commercial contracts, and you've got specific things that your customer wants to have. You can set up all of those different standard formats here and name them appropriately. I've got one here that's a summary invoice. That's just summary information. Total amount here for fixed price, labor, expenses, etc., and just gives a summary amount total. And I also have different formats that, I've got one here that's the cost plus fixed price time and material format, but I'm including all three types and have specific information that I want to show or not show. I can group them. I can show the new values of the funded value and the remaining funded value that I've got yet to bill out. I can rearrange the order of these different sections here, and I can tailor, each section, the labor section, expense section, fixed price section, and show specific rates or not show rates, show the timesheet comments or not. A lot of people need to show those timesheet comments, and it was a separate time details report. You don't have to. You can show them the comments here in the labor section here. And so you can see and extrapolate, all the different billing types and adjusted values and additional items, etc. here, and configure or format those. And when you make a change to the section or anything here, you can refresh the preview. You can see that preview come up over here in this format, this dummy format here. So format here really easily conform to the customer requirements that you have. I wanted to show one other item for email messages, invoicing send. So this is the setup for that emailing the invoice to your customer directly from in Unanet. And so there's a setup here that you can include the invoice amount and include the description and the subject line, etc. And you've got the invoice number here. We've got some fields available to you to give you that invoice number. So that needs to be set up by the administrator as well. All right. So now let's move on to the project setup. I'll just go right back in as Connie Contracts, or Carrie Contracts, I think it is. And I'm going to go to my particular projects in the system and show you some setup here. So let me go to my government. You can see here I saved a listing of just those projects that I'm working on and wanted to show you today, and that's on my financials tab here. So you can save the criteria for listing of people and projects, etc., invoices, all different types of things. So don't forget to quickly get to items that you're working on. So the first thing I'll go is that time and materials labor project and show you the billing tab here. That's the tab we're working on. Probably one of the most important things to do when you're starting to do an invoicing in Unanet is to mark the project to generate an invoice, this little checkbox here. That's very key. Another thing is it needs to be a billable type here. So the project type needs to be billable or direct. That's set up as the administrator and select as billable in the setup of your project type. So if you've got direct or bill or whatever the naming convention is you want to make sure that that project type is a billable type. So it's important to have that as a billable type as well. So our billing tab, again, this is labor. This is our lead project. Remember we had the one line, which is the labor, that had the contributor projects of the other two that make up the contract, my expenses and training. So you can see I've designated those as my contributor projects. They will automatically default to the standards that I've set up here for that lead project. And my labor project is that lead project, defining the invoicing format, the numbering format, and those payment terms that was defaulted from the customer. My customer right now is this NC Sparta. And additionally, the contacts, who is it going to be sent to, billed to, who is going to receive the payment, the owning organization or the one who's recognizing the revenue here. All of these contacts are derived from the project organization, and the project organization here for bill to and ship to, and the remit to is the owning organization. So those organizations also need to be set up in the Unanet instance with contacts and their addresses here. And it's a requirement to have at least the bill to contact address here. You can see the address here, and the remit to. You have to have somebody that you're going to send it to, and you have somebody that's going to receive the payment, right? So it makes sense. And here's where you'd set up if I'm going to email. What's the email invoice sending, default, who I'm going to email it to, Sherry Darginio at unanet.com, and BCC copy if I want to receive the email receipt, read receipt, etc., to make sure that they received it. So that new area here of delivering the invoice is here at the project setup. That's very important. Now, I've got the original setup here for a standard invoice format here, that first page, if you will, and I've got it here as a summary page for the total amount of the invoice for all 3 projects, right? I do have the ability under the additional invoice formats to select a secondary format that may have more specific line items in it, maybe showing the timesheet comments and the labors and labor categories, etc., the dates that the labor was charged, the expenses, etc. So I have the ability to have multiple formats associated with the invoice and at the project level here, as well as having the multiple projects on one invoice. So that's the lead and contributor idea of the multiple projects. And then the invoice formats is the ability to have multiple formats of the invoice, first page summary, second page details. You can select any one you want, add to, take away, etc. It doesn't, there's no limit there. And then the other tab is specific optional header information if you wanted to include a contract number or order number, your logo, that's where you upload here, the project information, code and title, and that funded value overall, and then any specific things here that you might have for description, you know, something specific about the contract itself, the memo field, etc. Those would all show up on that invoice recurrently over each invoice if you were, you know, repeatedly invoicing out by month. So that's the project setup in the system. So I think right now, based on time, I probably want to stop and take some questions because I've covered an awful lot of information here. Terry, do you want to kind of let me know what the questions are?
Absolutely. We have a few good ones for you. The first question is, can Unanet set indirect cost percentage by project? For example, project A is 25%, project B is 15%.
Yeah, so that is set up at the profile here. Let me go ahead and leave this because I really haven't changed anything. It's really set up with the cost structure. So project by project, you would decide the cost structure that's associated with the contract or the project. And the cost structure is those set of indirect rates. So if I go to my cost structure, I have to actually log out as the administrator, but my cost structure for Division A will have a rate or a set of rates. You know, if I've got overhead, G&A, fringe, I've got those set rates. And that's specific to that Division A. But I certainly could have my second project be associated with cost structure Division B, and they would be a separate set of rates. So yes, by project, this is where you would set that association of the rates. Good question.
Okay, so our next question is, why are my project level remit to and bill to showing up blank?
Okay, so that's a good question as well. So that's back down here in the billing section here. And if you come to the contacts and there's nothing showing up here, it means the administrator of the organization needs to go in and fill out contact and address information at the organization level. So if I come to the organizations tab here, and let's look up that NC Sparta. Let's look up Sparta here. My wild card here, and I'm going to look at that organization. I need to come here and ensure that I have contact information here and also or an address associated with that contact. If that hasn't been set up, then they won't be filled in at the project level and defaulted here. So usually it means that if you don't have any information there, you have to have it if it's blank. So the organization contact and addresses needs to be filled in by your administrator at the organization level for the project organization, which is the customer, and then the respective owning organization, which is the organization that's going to realize the revenue, you know, the remit to, who's going to receive payment. So in my case, it's the my company here. MyCo is the owning organization here. So it would also need to have contact and an organizational address. Good question.
Yeah, I have a couple on fixed price billing.
Okay.
So the first one is, how do you set up fixed price billing?
Okay, all right, so that's a good question. So I'm going to go back to my government contracts here. Remember, I had 3 of them. I had the expenses, cost plus, and my labor, and then I had this government training project here that was set up as fixed price. So I'm going to drill down in here, and under the billing tab, Because I've set the profile to be fixed price, I'll show you that. I've got billing type here is fixed price here. Because it's fixed price here, designated, and it's a billable type here, then this tab is now available for me to click in, and consequently, not only the invoicing setup, but because it's fixed price, I can click into this fixed price area here. This is where you would set up your fixed price billing schedule, or based on milestones, or based on percent complete. So you can see here, I have already billed out this first amount, the $39.75 here, and I'm working on the second one here. Actually, this one here is I've got it marked here. It's item, it's been posted, it's on an invoice, but I haven't quite yet completed that. So you can see here, that's the amount that I have for the July's billing, the training session for the $39.75. We saw that on the invoice. There's the ability to add one fixed price item at the project or task level and get a date and amount, and then associated recognizing revenue based on whether it's billed, percent complete, or custom schedule. I also have the ability to create a fixed price schedule here. If I have an amount, you know, and I'm going to do, I don't know, let's do August 1st just for grants, and I've got $10,000 that I'm going to bill out, and maybe it's a when billed based on a schedule. I can create that schedule for, you know, 2 months here, first of the period, and it's going to start it based on 8/1 and 9/1, and I've got the 5,000. As long as it's added up to that full 10,000, I can create a schedule here. I can, you know, add one, delete, as long as the full amount here equals the amount here in the billable amount set that you've set here at the project and or task level. You can certainly set it up at the task level. If I'm doing percent complete, then I would recognize revenue based on the billing amount of that percent complete. Basically, any labor or expenses that are accrued at that point in time since the last invoicing, it would calculate based on hours or total cost. That's set up at the profile here under the budget tab. Completed percentage, percent complete based on either hours, total cost, or labor costs altogether. So in general, that's the billing, fixed price billing setup. It's here. It has to be fixed price. It has to be a billable type, and you can come in and determine how you want to bill out the items, the fat fixed fee amount here, splitting it out, a schedule based on a milestone completion of a task. I can set that up as well. So hopefully that gives you some ideas for fixed price setup.
Great. Okay, the last question I have is someone would like to know, how do you add a fixed price item to a cost plus invoice, particularly a cost plus invoice?
Okay, so let's go back to my invoices here. So here's the one that I still have editable that I haven't completed yet. So I kind of showed that with the additional items here. I can add a fixed price item for, let's say, the labor, and you know, fixed price item, and it can be for additional charge, taxes or write-off, but additional charge here, and say I want to add it for, you know, $10,000. So it would be specific for this one invoice, 0096, for this project and task, and I'm adding to that fixed price item for whatever reason you have to, and I'd save that, and then let's go back to the invoice. And you should see that additional item, fixed price item for $10,000. So that's how you would add that one-time item. All right, any others?
That's all I have, unless someone else has a question they want to pop in the question box real quick.
Okay. Well, I'll continue on. Check my time here. We have a little bit of time left. So I just wanted to review the resources that are available to you. You know, you can always contact CAM at the email address cam@unanet.com, and your assigned CAM will respond to you if you have any questions from today. Sandra will get back with you on your questions. There's also Success at Unanet.com. The Success team is specifically focused on advanced project management. If you are interested in learning more about advanced project management using your Unanet that you have today, please let us know at success@unanet.com. And then, of course, you know you have always have access to the support team, support@unanet.com. Resources available to you, the help docs that are within the Unanet, our Knowledge Center, which is kc.unanet.com, for best practices, quick videos, and of course our webinar that's recorded today and will be uploaded to that site within the next 24 to 48 hours, so you can have that to review. And then finally, our Unanet University classes are on the website. Let me just take you there real quick to show you the next classes that are coming forward. There are a few that I wanted to mention in our Unanet University. And our schedules coming up is the project forecasting and resource planning, reporting, as well as time and expense administrator training, the cost revenue reporting in October. So if you're interested in these classes at the home office, please do let us know. You can register here. They are $800, but if you have a second person attending, that second person's a team in training. It's a 50% discount. So the two could attend for $1,200. They're at our Dulles, Virginia home office and from 9 to 4. So there was really all hands-on workshops specifically in these areas. So the Foundations of Reporting might be a great one to attend just to really focus on reporting for time, expense, tracking, and portfolio license types. And let's see here. Let me go back to my, I have a schedule here actually. All right, so again, support. Any last questions that we have?
I have nothing. Nope, okay. I have nothing. Nothing new that we can't answer offline. Also, a reminder that the handout, the PowerPoint, is in the handout section.
Yeah. Very good, very good. So I'll hang on the webinar for just another minute or two, let you grab that download for the PowerPoint. And thank you so much for joining us today. I hope this was helpful for you in making some decisions about maybe continuing to use, or deciding to use billing and invoicing within Unanet. And a big shout out to Terry for monitoring the questions box. I appreciate that help in the recording. And everyone have a great afternoon today. Take care and thanks for joining. Our next webinars will be coming up. There'll be, in 2 weeks, there's a webinar on the project life cycle, bid to bill to close. And then following that in 2 weeks will be our new 10.2 major release and all the enhancements that are associated with 10.2 that should be out by the end of this quarter. So we want to be sure to join those next couple of webinars by registering for them. Let me show you that while you're downloading the PowerPoint. Come back here to webinars and our next couple of webinars. This is us today. Lifecycle management of your contracts from bid to bill to close. So make sure you register for that one. And then the 10.2 enhancements. A lot of reporting enhancements. Majority of these enhancements here for our next major release are customer derived from you sending suggestions to suggestions@unanet.com. So I know you'll want to join us for that one. All right, thank you for joining today. Have a great rest of your afternoon and take care. Thanks again.